Is Ultra Instinct the most surprising transformation to ever happen in the entire show? I might honestly argue that. What is good, YouTube family? Welcome back to another Dragon Ball video, and today we're going to be talking about everything Goku and his journey to Ultra Instinct. Now, is Ultra Instinct as iconic as the Super Saiyan transformation itself? Probably not, but it's got to be one of, if not the most surprising transformation to ever happen in the entire series. The way Goku seemingly succumbed to his own Universe 7 Spirit Bomb, only to then reveal that not only did he survive, but he also achieved power beyond anything we could have ever expected from him in that arc. And this was Ultra Instinct's sign. Although it is definitely worth noting that as surprising as it was when it happened, the setup was there and the internet was already doing their thing, speculating a bunch of stuff. I could be wrong about this, but if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure the form itself did get leaked early. We just didn't know the name of it, but y'all have to correct me down below in the comments. Autonomous Ultra Instinct is the culmination of Goku's entire lifetime's worth of martial arts training after all. I know over in the manga, when Goku first uses Ultra Instinct, it's not really as hype as episode 110 was, but let's also talk about how Master Roshi tries to use the technique before Goku gets to it as well. In chapter 39, as Goku struggles against Jiren, Roshi tells him something very important. He reminds him of all of the things his masters have taught him along the way, and Goku would come to a pause to remember. His mind takes us straight back to chapter 89 of the OG Dragon Ball manga, where Goku remembers how Korin told him that too much wasted movement is why he keeps running out of breath so quickly. Then he remembers Master Popo's words from chapter 164, when he was told to be as tranquil as the heavens and as quick as a bolt from the blue. Then chapter 212 of Dragon Ball Z, when King Kai told him that if he wants to be the best in the universe, he'd have to train not just his body, but also his spirit. And Goku would also reference words from his most recent master. We're talking about episode 18 of Dragon Ball Super and all of the other times when Whis has told them that they shouldn't allow their mind to control their movements, that every part of their body has to judge and act on its own. Yeah, all those statements from hundreds of chapters of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super were basically just preparations, but that doesn't make it any less cool. Ultra Instinct is indeed the ultimate culmination of all of Goku's training and everything he's done throughout his entire life. This was inevitable, a rite of passage almost. Now recently we did a video about all of the times Beast Gohan was foreshadowed. Well, for this video, this is going to be a lot less about foreshadowing and more about Goku just being an absolute trailblazer. So if you guys are enjoying the Dragon Ball content, consider liking the video to help us out in the algorithm, and don't forget to subscribe as well, because by the end of the year, guys, I want to try to get this number as close to 50-50 as possible, so help me out. So our journey to the top is going to begin all the way back in Dragon Ball. When Goku pulled up to Korin's tower back in chapter 88, he was still just a kid who wanted the holy water because it was supposed to make him strong enough to defeat General Tao. He knew some martial arts at this point, but Goku was still just a baby as a martial artist, both kinda literally and figuratively right now. Goku actually had a pretty simple challenge. All he had to do was catch Korin and drink the water, but as expected, he was putting too much extra movement in his moves, and that was costing him his breath. Honestly, Goku was really diligent for his age. Even when Korin was asleep at night and he felt tempted to take that flask, Goku decided to just go back to sleep. He had morals right now. He didn't want to cheat. Overall, it took Goku 3 days to get the flask and drink the water from Korin. A stark contrast from Master Roshi, whom it took 3 years. Of course, it was just ordinary water. It was placebo, nothing holy about it, but Goku could feel it. He was already a totally different kind of fighter compared to when he first arrived at the tower. At first, he was just jumping around and making an absolute joke out of himself, but by the time the 3rd day rolled around, Goku's vision was clear, and he was able to one-up Korin because there was clear intent behind each and every one of his moves. However, Goku hadn't fully internalized this lesson at this point yet. In chapter 164, Goku quickly tires himself out by running around the lookout. Mr. Popo tells him the same thing Korin once told him. He explains how the air is very thin up here, and that's why Goku's wasted movements are working against him like they are. This is also where Mr. Popo tells him to be as tranquil as the heavens and as quick as a bolt from the blue. Now, Goku doesn't really understand what it means to be as quiet as the sky and to strike quicker than lightning, but Mr. Popo, much like many others who had encountered Goku, quickly started to grow fond of him, and he started teaching him the meaning behind the phrases right away. He would demonstrate by completely making his heart still. motionless, and this is actually really significant. Now, why would this training specifically be significant? Well, it's at this point that Goku is surprised, because as Mr. Popo is doing this, Goku realizes that he suddenly can't sense Mr. Popo's ki. He also tries to do the same, but Goku can't make that distinction between his heart and his mind right now. He only tries to tranquil his mind and not his heart. Mr. Popo would then demonstrate what it means to be quicker than lightning. Goku doesn't even realize it as Popo is behind him now, and not just that. He even points out a moment where Goku had just touched his face with his right hand, and even though he was facing the opposite direction, Popo was still able to pick up on this. Well, how? Goku wants to know just that. Popo would explain that the reason Goku didn't see him move is because he only sees with his eyes. Presence, scant air movement, instinct, feeling, not seeing. These are all just as important as trusting those two eyeballs. This lesson would lead us to a panel of a seemingly forgotten art by Goku where he's seen meditating and training his spirit. Goku's training arc with Popo and Kami is basically just a lower tier version of the same training he does with Whis. After all, when you think about it, Ultra Instinct is exactly what Popo told him to be. As tranquil as the heavens and as quick as a bolt from the blue. I've said that so much, that's probably about to be all over the comments. Now, naturally, Goku's training with King Kai plays a massive role. It's probably one of the most significant training arcs ever, especially because of how thorough and practical it was. He learned the Kaioken and the Spirit Bomb from King Kai, and he also made a pretty interesting statement in chapter 212. King Kai tells Goku that if he wants to be the strongest in the universe, he'd have to train not just his body, but also his spirit. And remember, this was all the way back in the Saiyan saga, so they were dropping them nuggets here and there all the way back then. And last but definitely not least would be Goku's training with Whis. And we're gonna go ahead and skip over the gravity training stuff during the Frieza saga and all the hyperbolic time chamber stuff. I wanted to try to focus exclusively on the path to Ultra Instinct and not all the other stuff like the Saiyan transformations and the Zenkai boosts. And also, Goku very obviously makes a lot of progress when he has a mentor, so I try to focus on those things as well. Now, with Goku's training with Whis, what makes this different is how this is the real thing. Goku now has Whis himself as a reference, a being who has reached the very pinnacle of martial arts. In the context of Universe 7, Whis is the peak. There's nothing above him. The second chapter of the Golden Frieza saga features Whis explaining how Goku and Vegeta think about their actions before they move. By the time sensations pass through their 5 senses to their brain and then back to the body, precious time has been lost. Whis would also add that you want for each and every part of your body to react, respond, and move of its own accord. And as we see in chapter 39 of the manga, or episode 110 of Dragon Ball Super, when Goku finally breaks out of his shell, he enters a totally new level of power, but this was still just Ultra Instinct sign. There were actually 3 steps to mastering this supreme technique. The first one goes without saying, you gotta clear your mind and abandon any distraction or any thought that may disrupt your focus. Although this is basically just relying on your natural instinct, it isn't until step 2 that you enter Ultra Instinct state of body and mind. Step 2 is what happened when Goku broke out of his shell and achieved Ultra Instinct sign. This is more so about breaking your self-limitation shell in an extreme way in order to explore your more intimate hidden potential. And as expected, the third and final step would be the most difficult. You have to combine the first 2 steps, and you have to do it while maintaining absolute clarity over your mind and complete control of your emotions. A lot easier said than done, which is why it took Goku so long to actually get the hang of this. He's not a deity like Whis or the Grand Priest or even this next guy we're about to talk about. In case some of you guys forgot, because he's so good at it now, Goku couldn't even use Ultra Instinct on his own until he trained with Maris in chapter 53 and became able to use Ultra Instinct sign at will. And then because of this training, later on in chapter 63 of Dragon Ball Super, when Maris sacrifices himself, he encourages Goku that he'll be just fine using Ultra Instinct at his current strength, pretty much implying that the training that they did together made his Ultra Instinct far more stable than it was prior. And sure enough, like clockwork, in chapter 64 of Dragon Ball Super, Goku finally achieves that third step. He maintains absolute composure as he perfectly and consciously enters the completed state of Ultra Instinct. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, this would be the point in the story where Ultra Instinct became another transformation in Goku's arsenal. In Dragon Ball Super Chapter 66, when Goku got that weird God Ki boost from Oob out of nowhere, he gained the ability to create an avatar of himself using his Ultra Instinct energy. And this will be how he just completely destroyed Moro. But even though all of this looks great, this looks like Goku has completely mastered Ultra Instinct at this point. In Whis' own words, Goku has only barely scratched the surface of Ultra Instinct. This was actually more apparent than not when we saw Goku's accuracy with Ultra Instinct fall kinda short during his fight with Granola. Which does make sense because again, Goku isn't a deity or anything like that. He doesn't have the body that can use Ultra Instinct 24/7, and that's why he'll never be able to make full use of it like the angels and has to find his own way to utilize it. If you look at it in a certain way, it almost feels like every time he uses perfected Ultra Instinct, it's almost like he's kind of borrowing somebody else's strength, if you can put it like that. Like, it just feels like a completely different character other than Goku. That's why when Goku recalled memories of his parents in Chapter 84, he had an important realization about his own Saiyan pride that we've never really seen from him before. He realized that he hasn't had total faith in his own powers this whole time. Which also makes sense. By going all in on Ultra Instinct, he's been kinda just denying or neglecting his Saiyan blood. This takes us to the most recent development in Goku's journey. In Chapter 85 of Dragon Ball Super, as our Saiyan duo once again trades blows with Gas, Vegeta over there literally getting drunk on power and Ultra Ego just taking blow after blow just cause he wanted to. Pause. But Vegeta also calls Goku out on his Ultra Instinct and reminds him that he's gotta figure out something fast. How can he evolve Ultra Instinct right now? Goku will return to his base state and begin to meditate. How is he supposed to find his own or utilize Ultra Instinct in his own unique fashion? Well, that was the question, and when Gas was done packing up Vegeta, Goku decides to enter the fight with Ultra Instinct Sign instead of the perfected version. His rationale was that instead of focusing on maintaining the perfect state, he'd rather just be able to let his emotions flow and fight in his own way. In Chapter 82 of Dragon Ball Super, Goku recalled Whis' advice on how it's up to him to discover his own unique version of Ultra Instinct, and this is it. This would be Goku's answer to how he can utilize Ultra Instinct in his own unique personal way. And this was it. This is Goku's Ultra Instinct. What we in the community later came to call True Ultra Instinct. However, it seems that this just might be an improved version of Goku's first Ultra Instinct Omen state. Shoot, maybe at some point in the future we'll even see like Ultra Instinct Super Saiyan or something, but I mean, we have Ultra Ego now, we have Beast, we have Gotenks who hasn't had a power up in like 20 years, so there's a lot on the table for Dragon Ball Super coming up soon. But as for Goku's journey to Ultra Instinct, well, right now, it's time to see just how strong a form favored by the angels is against a form nobody's ever seen before in Beast Gohan.